Yo, what's going on? It's LC. Welcome back to the channel. And today I want to talk about some Tears of the Kingdom. It's been about 4 months since this game dropped, and I kind of want to do a temperature check for everybody. Like how everybody's feeling about the game, how it's grew on you. If you grew to dislike it, is there some things that just like aren't really gelling with you from the time that you first played the game? I know a lot of things have changed for me actually. So that's what the purpose of this video is going to be. This is pretty much just going to be a stream of consciousness. I didn't even write a script for this. I just want to really talk raw about how I feel about this game. I do owe a lot to this game. Tears of the Kingdom really blew my channel up. Before I had even started making content for this channel, I had about like 4.5k subs, maybe 5k or something like that. So about 20k of you guys are here specifically based off of content I made for Tears of the Kingdom and maybe some Ocarina stuff. So to say that, I owe this game a lot is a huge understatement, right? So I don't want to say that, I'm not grateful for that. And I think that, seeing the last trailer for Tears of the Kingdom really was like flipped the switch in my head. I was like, this game looks like it's going to be incredible. I was pretty far removed from Zelda games. Like the last real Zelda game I had played all the way through was Wind Waker. So I really wasn't even in the realm of them. I had kind of like kept an eye on what they were doing. Like when Twilight Princess came out and Skyward Sword and stuff like that. I was like, this really doesn't look like, I'm not really interested in Zelda games anymore. But it was something about that trailer, man. That final trailer that dropped, I was just like, this game is going to be lit. And it kind of caught me in a really strange transitional period. I had to move out of my house. My lease was ending and I was transitioning over to a new job. So what I ended up doing is, knowing that those two things were happening, I bought Breath of the Wild and I started I was like, all right, I'm going to go all in on Tears of the Kingdom. I'm going to try it, see if it's good at least. So I had to go back and play Breath of the Wild first. And I had been avoiding that game for a long time, strictly due to the weapon mechanic, the weapon durability mechanic. I was like, that is ass. I don't think I'm gonna like it. It looks frustrating, you know what I mean? But I had heard so much about that game, like straight up universal critical acclaim. Like people were like, this game is like life-changing, you know what I mean? Like it's such an experience. I was like, okay, let's go ahead and give it a try. So playing through Breath of the Wild, I gotta say, on first impression, and I'm gonna make a whole video on this, on first impression, Breath of the Wild gives you a hell of a first impression. But it really comes down to what you're there for. And that's kind of what ultimately didn't make Breath of the Wild like, oh, this is like a new age classic for me. I knew clearly it was a very, very good game, very polished game. But the main thing with it was that a lot of the elements that I enjoy in Zelda, and even going back and replaying Majora's Mask and Ocarina of Time, it was missing a lot of those core elements. Things like the story, I don't know, man, I'm super mixed on it. I'm going to do a video on that, but it just really didn't hit me, you know what I mean? Especially by the time the game wrapped up. I did it live on Twitch. I was like, it just felt so hollow. It didn't feel, I had no connection at all. You know what I mean? The four kind of like cultures that they introduced, the Zora and stuff like that, the Hylian races, their representation in the game wasn't really that good. You know what I mean? Like you do the divine beasts and everything like that with them, but really getting into the divine beasts was actually cooler than actually what happened inside the divine beasts. And the flashbacks themselves are way cooler than anything that actually happens in the story. It feels like you're going through, you're talking to these ghosts and stuff like that. You're activating the divine beast. And it's just like, why would you be activating the divine beast? Because he's already showed that he can control them. So that was one thing that always bothered me. I was like, why are we activating them again? He's already displayed that he can control them. Why are we doing this? That was one thing that I was like, this is like kind of hilarious. Maybe because Zelda's in there with them and, she's suppressing his energy or whatever. Maybe it doesn't matter, but it was just something I just did not have a connection. I did not have a core connection with any of the new races that they introduced or anything like that.
Monsters! They're here!
Brother, this guy stinks!
And I felt like I understand the reasoning for it. You didn't really have to commit to a really story heavy narrative, and that's cool. And that makes sense. You know what I mean? And it feels like, honestly, the world itself tells a story of what happened way better than the actual game. If that makes sense. It's kind of traversing around and seeing like, the ruins and kind of, decayed guardians and stuff like that. I feel like the calamity should have been what we experienced. You know what I mean? And maybe this follow-up could have been DLC or something like that. But the flashbacks just are I don't really like that. That's the main way that you get a lot of exposition. And it's just way more interesting than what happens in Breath of the Wild. You know what I mean? I know that they're two parts to the same story, but what you end up doing in Breath of the Wild, outside of the exploration and everything like that, the main driving force for the narrative, it just really fell flat for me. And I really, really dislike the main boss and the conclusion just sucks. I just don't like it at all. So I say all that to say, going into Tears of the Kingdom, I was really looking for very specific things. Like, honestly, I was looking for major improvements to the dungeons, major improvements to the story. Like, honestly, after going through Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask over the last, like, I want to say month or so, the temples in Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild, like, they literally feel like junior puzzles. You know what I mean? Like, they feel like they're not even on par with the temples that Kid Link has to go through. I just don't understand why we couldn't get really damn good designed dungeons. Just going through the dungeons in Ocarina, I was like, yo, there's so much thought put into this, and it's layered in such a meticulous manner in order to kind of keep having the player learn and explore and experiment with how to get through the dungeons. I really like that. So going into Tears of the Kingdom, I had a very particular point of view. My first playthrough was kind of rushed, I'm gonna front, because as a content creator, or what I was trying to do as a content creator, I had time to go through and everything like that, but it was kind of a race to the bottom, honestly. Whoever gets the videos up first naturally gets the views and stuff like that. So my first playthrough, there was a lot of stuff that I appreciated, and there was a few moments I was like, all right, this is fucking cool. You know what I mean? Like, it has cool moments in it, and I think that it does do a lot of things a lot better than Breath of the Wild narratively, for sure. I think this is one of my favorite depictions of Ganondorf, like, for real. This is definitely one of the best, I think, overall, like, depictions of him. He felt menacing. I like that he was ingratiated throughout the entire story. You know, he does like the Phantom Zeldas, and then you're seeing the flashbacks as you do that with the Dragon Tears, and then you actually fight him in Hyrule Castle. He has that whole moment where he's like a fucking floating head and stuff like that. And then when you actually go to fight him, it feels like a real conclusion. You know what I mean? Like, all three forms, it feels satisfying when you take him down, because he's done so much shit to the world. You know what I mean? Like, he literally has toxified the entire world. So beating him feels very, very satisfying in this game. And I think the conclusion is very well done. I think the story going from Breath of the Wild to Tears of the Kingdom is definitely a huge step up. Is it the greatest story? No, I think the narrative is still kind of on the back burner, unfortunately, but I think it's way better handled. You know what I mean? I kind of still dislike the whole flashbacks. You know, at least the flashbacks are much more meaningful here. You get to see Zelda's decision and everything like that. And one major thing I absolutely loved about this game is that Zelda is actually a vital player. In most games, Zelda is there, you know what I mean? She's doing things. I never really feel that Zelda is a complete, like, useless individual. She's always trying to do stuff. Even if she herself can't resolve the issue, she's at least trying to put things in motion. You know, she did the Sheik thing in Ocarina. In this game, she goes all in. I actually think this is one of the better representations of Zelda. She goes all in, you know what I mean? In order to try and resolve this issue and defeat Ganondorf. Taking 10,000 years to heal Master Sword is kind of whatever. And then the fact that that sword still breaks after that, it's 10,000 plus years, by the way. I don't know, man. It's just something about knowing that this sword was healed by a dragon for thousands of years and it still breaks like every other weapon. I think that the hard committal to this weapon durability system really hurts the game in the long run. There's so many things that are just disposable in the game. Like, don't ever grow attached to a weapon that you really like, because you can only use it so many times. Or you could always go, you know, to the Octorok and do that whole cycle. And it's nice that that's in the game, but it doesn't stop it from being a tedious measure. It is ultimately a tedious measure in order to consistently do that. And depending on how durable the weapon is, you could still, you know, potentially break the weapon. I do like that they did the whole pristine weapon thing. That was pretty cool. I think that the base weapons look so much better than the rotted weapons, but I guess that's the point. You know, you're supposed to, the weapons are rotted. It is what it is. But there's always one thing in Zelda games that are a game within a game. With Breath of the Wild, just the world itself was a game within a game, right? Literally just exploring the world, doing all that was excellent. You know what I mean? But in this game, Ultra Hand is a game within its game. Like, you can literally like spend eons just coming up with different builds, different weapons, torture devices, you know, that's all cool. And I think that this game will have a lot of longevity because of that. And I think that's cool. And it's kind of future-proofs it, you know what I mean? It's like you always have something to do in this game. But if that's not really your bag, I do feel that on the content-wise, while it is relatively rich, a lot of it is super duper repetitive. That was the same issue with Breath of the Wild. And this is something I mentioned in the Ocarina of Time versus Breath of the Wild video, is that the fact that it is one size fit all for some of the solutions, you know, when it comes to Korok puzzles or, you know, increasing your inventory, the fact that you have to do this one thing to get this one reward, I think is super ass. And it really feels like a huge misstep coming from some of the previous titles where you could get heart pieces, especially like going through Majora's Mask. You can get so many heart pieces by just doing fun little mini games. You know what I mean? They reward you for just trying out and exploring in a game. In this game, you know exactly how to get every single heart piece from the shrines. You know what I mean? Like, that is just ass. I don't know any other way to put it. I hate that design philosophy with Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. I think that why would you, why would you take this massive step back? I guess is the best way to put it. It feels like a massive step backwards, and it feels like they had to compromise. We gave you this gigantic world with a million things to do, but in order to really do anything meaningful, you're gonna have to get into the lines. You gotta paint within the lines in order to get anything meaningful, and I don't like that. That's just something that I just really disliked, especially coming back to some of the older titles. Like, this is just ass. I don't like it at all. And one thing that I really appreciated is that they have characters that actually do things in this game. Like, the fact that Rauru was actually able to actually fight Ganondorf and seal him, that's like one of the first times in the whole series where it didn't fall on Link or Zelda to actually do everything. You know what I mean? That's one thing that I absolutely adored. I love that Rauru actually was that guy, at least for a little bit. You know what I mean? Like, I like that Rauru actually has some agency. He actually fought, you know what I mean? He was not just a bystander. I feel like he had a little bit of sauce. I like that a lot. And seeing, the timeline be damned, I guess, but seeing ancient Hyrule was pretty cool as well. And seeing kind of where everything had went and stuff, the first generation. And I think the Zonai are very, very intriguing. Maybe not quite as well done as some of the Sheikah stuff. I think some of the Sheikah stuff aesthetically looks better than some of the Zonai stuff. And, one thing also is some of the stuff in this game is just ugly. That's something that didn't strike me until like my second or third full playthrough, but it always kind of bothered me. I know that the fusion material it's a really good mechanic, and I don't know how you're gonna go to other Zelda titles without that mechanic. It's gonna be really difficult without having that Zonai, device currently. You can always build, machines and contraptions and stuff like that. But I really dislike the way things look. Everything just looks like it's been put together by a 5-year-old. You know what I mean? It just looks like little popsicle sticks and like glue and stuff like that. And the same thing goes for fusion weapons. And I know the fusion weapons aren't supposed to look great, but I feel like some of them could look a lot better instead of it just looks like somebody taped some of the items together and it just looks ugly. It's ugly to look at, even if it is a powerful weapon. I do like that they did take the time to make some of the weapons actually truly look good. Like, I have an example on the screen here, but some of them do look good. They could have took the time to do that with more weapons. I think it would have been cool, but some of the weapons choices, they just look ugly. A lot of the Zonai craft look ugly, and I understand it's supposed to be like some MacGyver type shit, but it is still just ugly to look at, unfortunately. But my opinion overall when it comes to Tears of the Kingdom, I will say my opinion has changed. Like, when the game first came out, it was like 9 out of 10 for sure. I like that they had improved a lot of the core things that I had issues with. They improved the story. They improved a lot of the combat mechanics. That's one thing. Let's dive into that right now. The combat mechanics, I think, have improved a lot, because the relationship that you have with combat in Breath of the Wild wasn't really good, in my opinion. The fact that you, like, in game, like, once you hit that certain point where you had like white foes on like white moblins and stuff like that on the field, you really had to have strong weapons in order to even take out the easiest mob. And I didn't like that. You know what I mean? Like, there was weapons I wanted to keep. I wish there was just like some type of refinement system. But the fact that you do get better drops you get drops for everything in this game. And I think that's much better. You know what I mean? It greatly improves the relationship that the player has when it comes to actually going out there and fighting. Not just being evasive, but actually going out there and farming for items and stuff like that. Or just even a casual enemy. I'm more apt to just kill them, fight them, instead of just running away. And that's just a much more satisfying feeling as well, for sure. Now, one thing I do want to talk about when it comes to the narrative, for sure, is the main thing that I don't like about Tears of the Kingdom on its story-wise is that the fact that it just kind of like tried to wash his hands and there's no continuity at all with Breath of the Wild. They might as well be in completely different worlds. I actually hate that. You know what I mean? It's so really jarring for most players to go to previous NPCs that you've done the huge missions with, and they don't even recognize you. You know what I mean? At all. It's just fucking strange. It is very like a strange disconnect that I just never really got over that. Like, hey, I built a whole town with you. You know what I mean? Like, I built Terrytown with you, but now you act like you don't even know me. Like, no one says anything about this clearly God hand that you have, on your arm. No one is saying anything. That's a really jarring disconnect. A few people might say stuff about it, but I actually don't think it was a good idea to completely wipe the slate clean. And that's one thing I had always thought, but it became more apparent when I started playing Majora's Mask. One of the first thing Majora's Mask does, like, when the spoiler alert, I guess, when the first 3 days is when you're running out of time, it shows a flashback of you speaking to Zelda and her teaching you the Song of Time, which I think is excellent. You know what I mean? It bails you out of that situation, but it shows the continuity between the first and the second title. And I think even just little elements like that would definitely have helped Tears of the Kingdom elevate. It didn't need to be a completely blank slate. I just don't know why they did that. I understand that you're reusing assets and you have a new story and everything like that, but there's like 10-15 million people that have bought this game. It's just weird to just act like that never happened. It's just weird. I don't know. It's a very strange decision. I'm not saying that needed to be a direct sequel like Final Fantasy X-2 or something like that. Just a little bit of recognition that this had happened, I think would have been fine. It's just like kind of like treated like a dirty word. Don't talk about that's come before. It's just strange. I just don't know why they've done that. It's very, very unusual. And I think my relationship with the game as I play other Zelda titles again, like I played Ocarina before growing up and stuff like that. I think some of my relationship with Tears of the Kingdom's gotten a bit worse. You know what I mean? I think that the performance is one thing also. The Tears of the Kingdom doesn't really perform that well on the Switch. Like there's a lot of like slowdowns and stuff like that I've noticed a bit more. You know what I mean? Maybe the first time I really wasn't, was expecting and stuff like that, but it just seems like this game would have been excellent to be a launch title for maybe the Switch 2 or something like that. Just having that better performance, I think definitely would have helped because it is much more ambitious of a title. And that comes with all three of the worlds, right? The Sky Islands. I think that, a lot of people say the Sky Islands was their biggest disappointment. I just think it needed maybe a handful more of things to do up there. I don't really fall in the same boat as a lot of people saying, hey, it's just barren. You know what I mean? It's just, should have had more stuff. I think it plays its role pretty well. Like I know what I'm getting on the Sky Islands and it's just pretty much there for like a few shrines, little like depots and stuff like that for Zonai materials and like bosses. That's pretty much it. The depths are much more encompassing and much more satisfying to actually fill out as well. I think that what they should have did, it was kind of go all in on the enemy variety in the depths. If there was more depths exclusive enemies, I think it would have been cool. Like you have the frogs, which I think is cool. You have like, the gloom based enemies and stuff like that. But I just needed it to feel like a different dimension. When I keep seeing the same faces and the same enemies and I already know how to kill them. Yeah, they're gloom. Yeah, they're going to do gloom damage now. I get it. But like, it needed to be a completely different break. It needs to feel like you are in a different dimension. And I think if they would have done that, that would have been fine. I think the things that are available in the depths are fine. Most outfits and stuff like that. It's cool. It's not like a huge thing for me. You know what I mean? Like it's cool that you don't have to, scan Amiibo in order to get any of the weapons. It's a really good idea that they brought all that stuff back without needing to charge you again. If they tell me Nintendo was doing that, I would have been like, that makes sense. Nintendo always doing it. They're not always on the nose when it comes to some of their business practices. And one other thing when it comes to all three layers of the world is honestly, the surface world isn't really that cool this time. It's not really that enthralling. I think it's maybe just because I came straight from Breath of the Wild, straight to Tears of the Kingdom. I was just, one game to another. I just wrapped up Breath of the Wild like maybe 2 weeks before Tears dropped. So like, I was already really ingratiated with their world. So maybe if you, had beat the game on launch here, and you had another 4 years, maybe the game reintroducing the world to you, that's a bit more satisfying, but there really isn't worth doing anything on the surface. Like there's nothing to really do. Like, I wish the game gave you more powerful weapons, I guess, in order, more powerful rewards, because they really like to give you a lot of armor and stuff like that. But the armor in this game, honestly, is kind of useless because, well, maybe I don't say completely useless, but upgrading it is definitely a pain in the ass. Like, I think anybody could agree with that. It's like you get this armor, it's cool, but like, hey, you're gonna get one shot, especially if you're at the end of the game. So let's stop what you're doing, and if you want to wear this, you need to upgrade it. You know what I mean? Like that's, I think some of the base defensive measures of some of the equipment should be much higher than it is, because like getting one shot just because I want to wear this outfit is kind of ass. And then the whole duplication glitches, I think, was a beautiful time in the game. It was fucking hilarious, and that was just one of the things that I don't think they could have foresaw happening. And a lot of people didn't update their game. I still have mine on the base one because the hell with that. I don't have enough time to be out here chasing down every item. I'd rather get it once and then duplicate it. But I did do a run through with absolutely no duplication, and it was fine. But I think the main thing that the duplication does is it limits my armor choices. That's really the only thing that it does, is that I now am going to have 1 or 2 pieces of full equipment that I'm going to use, and that is it. You know what I mean? Because I'm not going to be, it just takes too long to fully upgrade stuff, especially when you start talking about like those dragon pieces. Good luck, bruh. Like, it's really just insane. So I don't know what to say about that. Now, I know this is definitely a bit different from what you kind of expect from this channel. Normally I try and do everything all nice and curated and hyper edited, and it's all good. But I just wanted to get this video out because I really want to just kind of check the pulse of everybody out there. How are you feeling about Tears of the Kingdom? Like I mentioned before, I owe this game a massive amount. You know what I mean? Like, it's helped my growth exponentially across pretty much all content creator platforms, but it isn't without its faults. You know what I mean? Are they like irredeemable? Are they just completely break the game? No, but I think that it does warrant some discussion, and it also does kind of warrant some discussion about what to expect from the future of Zelda, because they've already said that Breath of the Wild is going to be the template. They're going to use that template, but I hope it gets some pretty significant tweaks, especially like with getting the hearts and stuff like that, or durability system. Those 2 things, if they fix those 2 things, I think they would have a real like insanely masterpiece level like game and formula going forward. But as usual, guys, if you enjoyed the channel, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. LC signing out. Peace. But I'm gonna go ahead and wrap it here.